Hello and welcome back. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a check of the top headlines this hour. Ukraine's military chief says it controls nearly 90% of the strategic northeastern town of Kupiansk, but Russia's defense minister said a Ukrainian counterattack on the town had been unsuccessful. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said on Wednesday that she was not ready to back a trade agreement between the European Union and the South African trade bloc Mercosur, dealing a blow to hopes of finalizing the deal in the coming days. The European Parliament approves an European Union deal to delay its anti-deforestation law by a year until December 2026. Clearing the penultimate legal hurdle before the delay can pass into law. According to a poll of aid agencies, the humanitarian crisis engulfing Sudan, unleashing horrific violence on children and uprooting nearly a quarter of the population, is the world's most neglected crisis of this year. Warner Bros. Discovery's WVDO board rejected Paramount Skydance's $108.4 billion hostile bid, saying it failed to provide adequate financing assurances. Doctors in England began a 5-day strike over pay and working conditions during a surge in flu cases and with no end in sight to an increasingly bitter dispute with the government. A new research reveals that applying an insecticide treatment used for soldiers' uniforms to the clothes used to carry babies significantly reduced incidence of malaria in the children. Amid threats from Bangladesh, India has closed visa application centers in Dhaka. Security threats from extremist elements have deteriorated the situation, prompting New Delhi to summon Bangladesh's envoy to convey serious concerns. And viewers, the European Parliament has voted to approve the European Union's plan to phase out imports of Russian gas by the end of 2027. The vote marks a major step toward ending Europe's dependence on Russian energy following Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. The legislation now faces one final legal hurdle: formal approval by European Union member states' energy ministers, expected in early 2025. Once adopted, the law would set a binding timeline for countries across the bloc to fully end their reliance on Russian natural gas within the next 2 years. Despite sharp reductions since 2022, the European Union still remains a significant buyer of Russian pipeline gas and the largest importer of Russian liquefied natural gas. Meanwhile, China continues to dominate purchases of Russian crude oil, followed by India and Turkey. Now, joining us in this discussion is Raymond Vickery, who is an international affairs expert and former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce. Joins us live from Washington. Thank you, Mr. Vickery, for joining us here once again at NewsX World. Wasn't this a writing on the wall?
Well, thanks very much for having me. Appreciate you having me. And your question is?
On the European Union paving the way to ban Russian gas imports, and wasn't this rather obvious?
It's about time. The difficulty, of course, has been that while there is the worst derogation of the principles of the United Nations since World War II by Russia with the invasion, the fact is that Europe has been continuing to buy pipeline gas, which fuels the Russian war machine. At the same time, the United States administration, of course, is saying that countries like India must stop buying oil. So the problem has been that there has been no comprehensive approach to the problem of dealing with Russia economically, and economic and strategic matters are joined at the hip. You have to have a strategy, you have to have partners, and you have to have principles which are comprehensive in order to make economic sanctions work. And the pipeline gas to Europe has been a major chink in the armor, if you will, of the Western nations in trying to support Ukraine. So this is about time that something like this has happened if Europe is serious about confronting Russia. Although, as you point out, there's a very significant delay in actually cutting off the gas, and so whether or not this is going to have any immediate effect is very doubtful.
And what about the opposition to this plan that has come from Orban earlier, the Hungarian leader? Will he continue to go against the European Union and purchase oil and gas from Russia, and how would that affect its relations with the continent?
Well, Orban seems to be firmly really in the camp of President Putin.
Yeah.
He has an authoritarian approach to government. It's really very ironic that it's so compatible with that of President Trump. It's unlikely that he is going to completely jettison what he feels is an opportunity to increase his power in Hungary and to take advantage of the situation. And of course, that has deleterious effects in terms of the EU really being able to follow through in a comprehensive way. Nevertheless, there is a coalition of the willing, if you will, of countries who are standing firmly with Ukraine. Unfortunately, that does not include the United States or Hungary, who seem to be playing their own game. So yes, but once again, it shows the weakness, if you will, in not having a strategy which is comprehensive in order to bring this conflict to a close.
Yeah, and also the opposition that has come in from Slovakia on the, on the question. But I request you to stay on, Mr. Vickery, as we move ahead to some more news now coming in. Viewers, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni says that Italy is not ready to sign off on the massive trade agreement between the European Union and the Mercosur bloc just yet. Addressing the parliament, Meloni said it would be premature to approve the deal in the coming days because key safeguards to protect Italian farmers are still not finalized. However, she made it clear that Italy is not opposing the agreement and said she is confident conditions could be met by early 2026. The European Commission, which is backed by Germany, wants member states to approve the deal before the end of the year. If signed, it would create the world's largest free trade area, boosting European Union exports while easing South African agricultural imports into Europe. Let's listen in.
Non di meno, il governo italiano è sempre stato chiaro nel dire che l'accordo dovrà essere positivo per tutti i settori e che quindi è necessario rispondere in particolare alle preoccupazioni dei nostri agricoltori. Negli scorsi mesi abbiamo quindi lavorato molto intensamente con la Commissione, ottenuto passi in avanti significativi, in particolare con l'introduzione di un meccanismo specifico di salvaguardia, di un fondo adeguato di compensazione cui attingere in caso di necessità e più recentemente di un significativo rafforzamento dei controlli fitosanitari in entrata. Tutte queste misure, seppur presentate, non sono ancora del tutto finalizzate. Riteniamo quindi che firmare l'accordo nei prossimi giorni, come è stato ipotizzato, sia ancora prematuro. Per noi è necessario attendere che il pacchetto di misure aggiuntive a tutela del settore agricolo sia perfezionato e allo stesso tempo illustrarlo e discuterlo con i nostri agricoltori. Questo non significa che l'Italia intenda bloccare o opporsi all'accordo nel suo complesso, ma come abbiamo sempre detto intendiamo approvarlo solo nel momento in cui saranno incluse adeguate garanzie di reciprocità per il nostro settore.
France has also stepped in, with French President Emmanuel Macron saying Paris will strongly oppose any attempt to force the deal through, citing concerns for its farmers. And I now request Mr. Vickery to join us back into the discussion here. Mr. Vickery, now crucial opposition have come from both Italy and France. Of course, I said earlier as well that it wants to delay going forward with the deal, given that it is an agricultural country, and farmers have already raised several issues in France. Is it any likely now that this deal is possible to be inked before the end of the year, as the European Union wants?
Well, thanks for allowing me to comment on this. It seems that this deal, which has been in negotiation for 25 years, is not going to happen before the end of the year. The problem, of course, is one which really has been exacerbated by the United States in abandoning the principles of the World Trade Organization, and before that, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, in order to try to bring comprehensive freer trade to the world. Again, if you take a strictly transactional approach, this transaction has run awry because of the traditional interest in terms of European farmers wanting to protect their markets. And it's just the latest example of the difficulties which the world trading system is facing as people look to just transactional approaches as opposed to a principled multilateral approach. There is a tendency simply to want to protect what is one's own, rather than realizing the larger and more widely spread benefits of freer trade. So this deal may get done eventually, but I doubt it's going to happen before the end of the year.
And how is the United States likely to react once this deal is inked?
Well, the United States is taking at this point a Fortress America approach to the world trading system. And that is that the Trump administration feels the United States really doesn't need the rest of the world. And in complicating the situation is a mindset that the Western Hemisphere is somehow a domain of the United States. You can see what is happening strategically in regard to security with Venezuela and Cuba. I doubt very seriously that the United States will in any way help to conclude or to make a reality out of a EU-Mercosur agreement. And again, it shows the difficulties of this transactional approach, and it also indicates the strong connection between economic and security matters. One can only hope that the United States, along with the rest of the world, will get back to a system which has largely provided for peace and prosperity in the world since World War II, but is very much in danger at this point.
All right. Well, for now, thank you very much, Mr. Vickery, for giving that meaningful insight. And with that, viewers, we are going to move on. Now, Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has delivered a strong message of unity and resilience at an interfaith memorial service in Sydney. Speaking at St. Mary's Cathedral, he paid tribute to the victims of the deadly Bondi beach attack that killed 15 people and acknowledged the pain felt by faith communities across the country. Albanese also praised the bravery of ordinary Australians who stepped in to help during the violence, highlighting acts of courage and compassion. He stressed that Australia will not allow hatred or fear to divide its people. Let's listen in.
Jewish Australians deliberately targeted on the first night of Hanukkah as they came together at that beautiful place to renew their hope, their resilience, their belief in the power of light. The darkness of terror and anti-Semitism was cast upon them. Our nation is stronger than the cowards who seek to divide us. The spirit of the country that we have built together will always be greater than those who seek to breach it. We are braver than the people who try to make us afraid.
And now joining me in this discussion is Shaul Satka, who's a political commentator and joins us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you, Shaul, for joining us once again in this discussion. Shaul, now you would have seen the developments coming from the Bondi Beach shooting investigation. In the latest, we know that an ISIL link has emerged to the shooters based on the flag that was found in the son's bag. But do you think that it's on Australia to take the terrorism question more seriously, because focus until now has been more on gun laws than the threat of terrorist groups?
Well, that's right. If there had been more people with guns at that massacre, 15 people wouldn't have been dead. The situation in Australia with guns is that some people have guns, but if jihadis have guns, everybody needs to have guns. If Australia wants to solve the problem of jihadis, it has to deal with them.
Yeah.
Solving the gun problem isn't the issue here at all. This is quite obvious. But of course, it's much easier. And as Albanese said, the Australians are not going to be afraid. Well, they should be afraid. They really should be afraid. They should be terrified. Because just as there is that guy there, those two men, father and son, there are thousands more who may be interested in committing similar atrocities. And getting the gun isn't the bottleneck. If you really want to get a gun in Australia, you can get a gun. These guys even had the guns legally. Somehow, even though they were on terrorist watch lists, having been investigated for ISIS links in the past. The entire thing is quite bizarre and really has to be dealt with. And the gun law issue, that's not what's going to solve this. That's not what's going to stop this from happening again. Not under any circumstances.
What kind of action should we expect from all the global actors, not just Australia, to tackle with the threat of ISIS, given that it's clearly operating, undercover, not in an asymmetric manner?
Yes, there's no way that ISIS or their affiliates or the Muslim Brotherhood or even the Islamic Republic of Iran have any chance in a symmetric, say, battle against Western nations. They would be completely crushed, which is why for the past 50 years they have used this kind of asymmetric warfare and of course targeting civilians in the most cowardly possible way. This is their standard operating procedure. It's really all they have in this war. And so to fight back against this is a real effort. And it needs to first identify the problem. And the problem is not gun ownership. The problem is, of course, jihadism and the desire of a small number of Muslims to conquer the world via violence. And until that is recognized as the problem, the main issue that has to be dealt with, that people like that not only hold those views in Afghanistan or in Pakistan or in Syria, but they hold those views and they live in London or in Sydney or in New York. Until that problem is addressed and those people are de-radicalized or weeded out of society, until those problems are addressed, this will continue to happen. And I would even hazard a guess that the pace of these attacks will accelerate.
All right. Shaul, one final thing that I'd like to ask you. Now, you would have seen how Australia recently banned, social media for people under 16. Now, there was no statement made to this regard, but was it or could it because Australia could foresee a threat of online radicalization, which is also how the young shooter, was radicalized into carrying out this event. We don't know how much of connection does their Philippines visit have to the shooting, but clearly there was an element that indicates that they were radicalized online.
It could absolutely true that children can be radicalized online. The younger shooter here was 26 years old, I believe, and had been on the radar of the Australian authorities, so people say, since he was about 19. Where and how exactly he was radicalized is unclear, though in his case in particular, it seems fairly obvious that he was radicalized at home on account of the fact that he went on a suicide mission alongside his father who raised him in Australia.
Yeah.
In this particular case, it doesn't really seem to fit the mold. Yet, of course, naturally, on social media, the possibilities of radicalizing people en masse in a broadcast way is extremely dangerous, particularly with the Chinese application TikTok, which is controlled by the CCP and can be used as a weapon against all societies. You can rest assured that the Chinese who are monitoring all the people who use TikTok have grids, and they know who are the most extreme people, what accounts they are associated with, what they're interested in, and they have all that data, and they might at any point decide to use it. It's a horrifying prospect, but the TikTok issue is just one of many. There are foreign actors that are essentially hacking the algorithms of all the main social media platforms.
All right, well, discussions on that regard will go on until a clear cause is established. But for now, I thank you, Shaul, for joining us. And moving on, viewers, Warner Bros. Discovery has rejected a $108 billion hostile takeover bid from Paramount Skydance, saying the offer failed to provide credible and fully guaranteed financing. In a letter to shareholders, the board said Paramount has misled investors by claiming its $30 per share bid was fully backstopped by the Ellison family. The board said the financing instead relied on what it called an opaque revocable trust linked to billionaire Larry Ellison, arguing it carried significant risk and could be withdrawn at any time. Warner Bros. Also raised concerns about Paramount's debt levels, creditworthiness, and ambitious synergy targets, warning the deal could weaken Hollywood and lead to job losses. The board reaffirmed its support for Netflix's competing offer, calling it a binding agreement backed by strong financing and investment-grade balance sheet and fewer execution risks. Paramount has disputed the claims and insists its financing is secure. And joining me in this discussion is Peter Cardillo, who's chief economist at Spartan Capitals, joins us live from New York. Thank you, Mr. Cardillo, for joining us in this discussion here. I want to ask you as to why do you think Trump is hitting out at Paramount over this deal?
I don't know, but he's made it very clear that the sale of CNN has to be included. So I don't know his reasoning, why he seems to be leaning more towards Paramount, but I guess that might be an indication.
Do you think his son-in-law is involved?
Excuse me?
Would you say his son-in-law is involved in the deal?
I've read a few articles regarding that, but again, you know, the bottom line is, I think that Warner Brothers, Paramount, and Netflix have to do which is good for the investors. And anytime you have a hostile bid takeover, as this is turning out to be, at the end, I think whoever has a cleaner deal and whoever can offer the most money is probably gonna probably win out. There's been many of hostile deals in the past, And sometimes, there's justification for one company over another. It might be due to their financial standings, or it might be due to the fact that the shareholders are going to get a little bit more. Sometimes it might mean for the famous golden packages for the selling company, for their executives, what they're going to receive. And there's a lot of caveats when you have a hostile bid situation, and so it has to play out. This morning, the CEO of Netflix was interviewed on CNBC, and he made it very clear that his deal was structured and clean. And so shareholders now are going to have to decide, at least that's what Warner Brothers is asking the shareholders, to vote against it, and they will have a meeting, and then it's up to the shareholders to more or less see which is a better deal for the shareholders, for themselves, and not necessarily for the CEOs of any of the companies.
All right, we'll watch out over how that deal proceeds, and would request you to join us back when that happens. But for now, thank you, Mr. Cardinal, for joining us. And with that, viewers, let's shift our focus to news now coming in over German auto industry. The Verband Automobilindustrielle, which is Germany's leading auto industry group, reacted sharply to the European Commission's proposal to weaken the 2035 combustion engine ban, calling the draft package disastrous. While the group had long lobbied for flexibility, it criticized the new proposal for rebalancing the ban with a complex web of more regulations that it claims are ineffective and fatal for competitiveness. Meanwhile, major individual German car makers like Volkswagen welcomed the move as pragmatic, and BMW hailed it as a step in the right direction. Let's listen in to what the head of communications at German Association of the Automotive Industry has said.
Wir sehen das kritisch und wir sehen es lediglich als einen ersten Schritt. Die EU hatte versprochen, sich die Realitäten anzusehen und dann Flexibilisierungen und Anpassungen vorzunehmen. Das, was jetzt letztlich passiert ist, sind eigentlich an bestimmten Stellen noch mehr Regulierungen. Wir haben zwar das Bekenntnis zur Technologieoffenheit, aber das ist letztlich ein Lippenbekenntnis, wenn es mit Hürden versehen wird, die wir gar nicht unter Kontrolle haben. Sei es beispielsweise bei grünem Stahl, der verbaut werden soll, von dem wir die Verfügbarkeiten gar nicht kennen, oder auch bei erneuerbaren Kraftstoffen. Das führt letzten Endes dazu, dass wir wieder davon abhängig sind, was andere machen, so wie es schon bei der Ladeinfrastruktur ist, und deswegen sehen wir das sehr kritisch. Da kann man eines ganz deutlich sagen: Es wurde gestern an den Klimazielen nichts verändert. Es ist weiterhin ein 100%-Ziel. Das Einzige, was gestern verändert wurde, ist, dass man sagt, dass eben diese 10%, die man jetzt runtergegangen ist auf 90, die werden ja erbracht durch den Einsatz von grünem Stahl und erneuerbaren Kraftstoffen. Das heißt, das wurde ja nur verschoben. An den Klimazielen ändert sich nichts, und da stehen wir auch dafür. Wir wollen diese Klimaziele erreichen. Es geht uns überhaupt nicht um das Ob, uns geht es um das Wie. Wir haben da konstruktive.
All right, that's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.